Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for InstitutionalAdvisors.com. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Yeah, hi, Jim. Here we are on Friday, and there's markets and things out there.
We have the G7 meeting in Quebec on the weekend. Donald Trump versus the world. What do you think's going to happen there, and can they convince him that tariffs aren't the best thing for America?
Well, G7 it had been G6 when Canada was allowed in, so they made it G7. But in looking at the performance of the Trudeau government, I would say the group would now be called the 6.5, the G6.5. And Trump is a bully, but you should keep in mind that these governments and bureaucrats and everything else, they are the ones who have really been preying upon each of their country's general public. And we're in the midst of what I've been calling a popular uprising, and there's evidence of these going way back to ancient Egypt times, and their characteristics are always similar. The governing classes, if they are not limited by constitutional norms, will become ambitious, and they will end up with controlling everything and all of the goods and food and stuff. And they tell a good line, like in Soviet Russia. Their promises were great. The governing classes were living terrifically. And then the public looked at it and said, hey, this isn't a good deal. And then in late 89, it was taking down the Berlin Wall and then communism, which was remarkable. But then what you've had with the previous Obama administration, ambitious government, and no concerns for the Constitution, and they went unlimited, and so you got, you end up with in-your-face and in-your-wallet government, and the folks said no. So you've had a popular uprising going there, and it's executive now of the uprising. Trump didn't create it. He's the executive of the uprising. But anyways, he is representing ordinary people within the contract between government and society. And then with the coming into this G6.5 meeting, he's representing the public, and the rest of the attendees are representing the bureaucracy. So no wonder he's causing one of those kind of storms. And also, I just read here this morning that on the final wrap-up day, I guess on Sunday, he's leaving early and avoiding or missing, whichever way you want to look at it, the sessions on global warming and the environment. And this is highly offensive to the creatures that attend these kind of conflabs in their objective to control everyone's life. So I find it very entertaining. And the other thing in Canada of note was yesterday's election in the province of Ontario,
and Bob, we'll talk about the
conservative government and a blustery leader won.
Bob, can we talk about that? after the break?
Sure.
Okay.
I didn't think we'd gone that long.
I got a bad throat here, so I just want to get this out of the way.
Okay.
We'll talk about the implications of Doug Ford being elected Premier of Ontario next when we come back with Bob Hoye.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of Powerband Solutions. Powerband is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. Powerband Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, Conservative leader Doug Ford had a tremendously large victory over the NDP and the Liberals in Ontario. The Ontario Liberals even lost their official party status. They elected so few seats. What does this mean for the Ontario economy, and what does it mean for the Canadian economy, which, of course, Ontario is a huge part of?
Oh, I think it's another step in the Great Reformation that's going on, where the public's trying to reduce the influence and size of a predatory state. So this is an important step, and particularly interesting is that the governing party, the provincial Liberals, are ranked now down to a non-party with only 7 seats. So this is a really a strong reprimand, and it's enjoyable. So Ontario had been the industrial heart of Canada, and then it had good, cheap power, and then over the last 20 years, no matter which government was in, whether it was Conservatives or Liberals, they weren't attending to things. It was, and the experiment in generating power from alternative sources was just becoming tremendously expensive. And then of all of the sub-federal governments in industrial countries, sort of like the equivalent of states or provinces, on a per capita basis, the Ontario debt load is even greater, considerably greater, than that of California, which is another country or a state run by unlimited government. So it's quite a record. So now here, this is a chance to reform, in this case, a provincial government that was operating without limits. And it's quite refreshing, actually. It's a step, or a returning step to democracy. For the markets, eventually, it'll take a long time. It'll improve the province's credit rating and hopefully at some point be able to provide some tax relief. And it'll also get away from this business of having electricity generated by intermittent sources, i.e. the sun with solar cells and windmills. They do not operate all of the time, and they're more of a problem than they are a help. So I look at it as a tremendous change.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after this.
Vatic Ventures Corp. is a potash exploration company focused on the Korat Basin in Thailand, the world's largest undeveloped potash resource. Vatic's management has extensive potash exploration and development experience in Thailand. Vatic will have marketing advantage compared to Western producers. Drill program commences this spring. Vatic trades on the TSX Venture, symbol VCV, and on Frankfurt, symbol V8V2. Visit our website, vaticventures.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Bob Hoye. Bob, we have a listener question from Arthur Barron. He says, Mr. Hoye frequently blames Canada for a low dollar. Please explain how this dynamic operates. I thought all currencies are freely traded on open markets to determine their value. Bond rates for Canadian terms are not that much lower than U.S. bonds. Bob, what's your reaction?
Well, I like the question and welcome it. Currencies are fabulous traders. Yeah, they do trade second to second and everything else. It's very popular to look at the differences in interest rates between Canada and the U.S. and say that our interest rates are higher, therefore the dollar should be firmer. But that's rather intuitive, and the step towards or an argument against that is, of course, back in the 80s when the Deutschmark, the German Deutschmark, was very, very strong and consistently strong. Their interest rates were very low because the currency was relatively sound. So my criticism of the Canadian federal government is that it's far too intrusive, and in order to pay for their ambition, the resort is usually to depreciate the currency. And at the moment, Canada is on track with Venezuela, resource-rich country, heading back into central planning and central influences, of which they eventually screw up. So, yeah, the Canadian dollar will continue its downtrend because the federal government is in a different time warp and will never, ever turn to probity and, sound government. They're off on 1960s fantasy land. So, that's the problem. And living in Canada, we're going to have to face aggressive government, and the way they finance themselves is through currency depreciation. So, not a pretty sight, but we have to go through it again until the public gets concerned enough, as we've seen with the Ontario election. That could happen on the next federal election, which would be rather good.
Jordan Bateman from the Independent Business Association and Contractors is really worried that one of Trudeau's solutions to U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel would be to put tariffs on all steel coming into Canada to support the Ontario-based steel industry. But he says BC only uses 10% Canadian steel. The rest of it comes from all over the planet. So it would tremendously boost the cost of building anything in British Columbia. Your position on that? Or this is speculation right now, but could you see it happening?
When you get pushing and shoving on tariffs, it's very childish. I still look at what Trump is doing in the States as trying to reduce the tariffs that have been laid on the U.S., not just tariffs, but, try and sell a car made in the U.S. into France, that sort of thing. So there have been a lot of blockages against the U.S., which he is trying to reduce. And what you then have is then those offended, or those countries get offended and say, we're going to put a tariff on you. So, but what I still stay with is that at some point this boom gets over and there will be a recession, and then that is typically the time when each politician looks at the growing unemployment. And at the moment, the employment numbers in the States are the best they've been in decades. So, no, this serious trade interruptions and tariffs and protectionism will come at some time, but that would only be within the context of a serious recession, and that's down the line somewhere. So this here is just the U.S. trying to set up a fair trade with its trading partners, where it has been unfair against the Americans. And then plus, to go back to the Canadian dollar, you set up a trade agreement, NAFTA, a generation ago, and you've got all the agreements, you've got all the numbers, taxes and everything else all figured out, and then the Canadian government takes the currency from when it was 1-to-1 with the U.S. at par, then under the Chrétien government, all the way down to 63 cents, which is an enormous cheat. So, anyways, yeah, it's fascinating times, Jim. And the markets here, the blowout in December, January, particularly for the Bitcoin phenomenon, it could be the top of that bubble. And then through here now, more recently, we've been looking for improving action in the credit markets, like favorable trend in the yield curve and favorable in credit spreads, and that indeed has been happening. And also that would be helped by an improvement in industrial commodity prices. Oh yeah, we had a very good rally for crude, some good rallies for base metals, and an outstanding rally for lumber. But this is all the stuff that we called sunshine, and it would likely run into around the middle of the year, i.e. somewhere around here now. But at the moment, we're not seeing any of these things. Also, I've taken to calling these items I've talked about in the credit markets the friends of the bull market. And they have been supportive, but we're watching for a trend change in there, and we haven't got it yet. So the markets are fascinating, vastly overpriced. The general stock market, either relative to GDP or relative to the average wage, is exceptionally high. So one has to keep that in mind all the time. But it's going to be interesting how the summer progresses. We've had the good stuff into around mid-year that we were looking for, and now we're just watching to see if there's any changes.
Bob, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Very good to be with you, Jim, and look forward to next week.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for institutionaladvisors.com. If you have any questions for the show or for Bob, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.